The federal courts are no longer shocked by the conduct of the Trump administration. They are simply telling him no. They are telling him no every single day and often multiple times a day. We are seeing a blitz of headlines in a gigantic news week where the rule of law is finally asserting itself against a president who acts as if the law does not exist. Billions of dollars in clean energy funding, federal grants for pediatricians, vital childcare services for the most vulnerable American families, election administration funds. In every instance, Donald Trump tried to use the power of the federal government as a weapon of political retaliation. In every instance, the federal courts have stepped in to block him. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of documented legal record.
Today, a federal court blocked the Trump administration from cutting energy funding just for blue states. This is billions of dollars Congress appropriated for clean energy projects of various kinds all over the country. Trump administration decided, and they admitted this, they decided that just in blue states, just in states that didn't vote for Trump, they would cut all of that funding. They'd leave the funding in place in states that voted for Trump. They would cut it in states that didn't vote for Trump. A federal court today ruled that that is illegal and stopped the Trump administration from doing that.
The courts and the United States Congress are showing a new spine. They are rebuking this administration at every turn. Donald Trump and his administration claim that the executive branch has the unilateral authority to withhold congressionally appropriated funds based on the political leanings of a state or the political speech of a professional organization. They claim that the president can stop federal funding to states simply because those states did not vote for him. They claim they can cancel grants to doctors who criticize their policy decisions. They claim they can freeze money for childcare and social services to punish Democratic-run states. That is a lie. It is a lie that has been dismantled by federal judges across the country in a series of historic rulings this week.
That ruling today came after another federal court today stopped Trump from shutting down a big offshore wind farm in Rhode Island and Connecticut. Trump's shutdown of that project, according to the courts today, was also illegal. And so yet another federal court blocked Trump on that as well, so that work on the wind farm will be able to go ahead.
These actions are not legal exercises of executive discretion. They are illegal acts of retaliation. The administration has been blocked because their justification for these actions has no basis in the law of the United States. The lie is the assertion that the President of the United States has the power to selectively distribute federal resources based on personal political grievances. The speaker of this lie is Donald Trump and the authorities within his administration, including his Department of Health and Human Services under...
This is a doctors group, a pediatricians group that criticized the flock of ducks level insane quackery at Trump's Department of Health and Human Services under RFK Jr. Trump responded by canceling federal grants for the American Academy of Pediatrics. A judge has now ruled that that was illegal retaliation. And so Trump is blocked from doing that. That funding has to be reinstated.
Under RFK Jr., specifically, the administration decided that in states that did not vote for Donald Trump, they would cut billions of dollars in funding for clean energy projects. They admitted this. They admitted they would leave funding in place for states that voted for Trump, but cut it for states that did not vote for him. They also claimed the authority to cancel federal grants for the American Academy of Pediatrics because that group criticized what the courts have identified as quackery within the Department of Health and Human Services. Furthermore, the administration claimed the authority to cut off federal election funds to states that refuse to change their election rules to suit Donald Trump's preferences. These claims of authority are false. The forensic evidence consists of a series of specific federal court rulings that have systematically blocked the Trump administration's actions. First, a federal court blocked the administration from cutting energy funding for blue states. This involved billions of dollars that the United States Congress had already appropriated for clean energy projects across the country. The court found that cutting this funding solely in states that did not vote for Trump was illegal. Second, a federal court stopped the administration from shutting down a large offshore wind farm located in Rhode Island and Connecticut. The court ruled that Trump's attempt to shut down that specific project was illegal. Third, a federal court blocked the administration from cutting funding to the American Academy of Pediatrics. The administration had canceled these federal grants as a response to the group's criticism of the Department of Health and Human Services. The judge ruled that this was an act of illegal retaliation. Fourth, a federal judge blocked Trump from cutting off federal election funds to states. The administration attempted to use these funds as leverage to force states to change their election rules. The court stated that the Constitution assigns no authority to the president over federal election administration.
That ruling comes after another federal judge just blocked Trump from cutting off federal election funds to states in retaliation for them not changing their election rules in ways that Trump wants. The judge said, quote, "The Constitution assigns no authority to the president over federal election administration." And so Trump got blocked on that one, too. Shall I keep going? I could keep going.
Fifth, a federal court blocked Trump from freezing billions of dollars intended for childcare and social services for children. This funding, part of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program, was being withheld from Democratic-run states as a form of punishment. These rulings prove that the administration is blatantly breaking the law consistently. They prove that the administration is using federal programs as tools for political punishment. These actions represent an attempt to consolidate power by bypassing the constitutional role of the United States Congress and the sovereign rights of the states. When the administration attempts to cut energy funding that Congress has already appropriated, they are attempting to seize the power of the purse, which the Constitution grants to the legislative branch.
Look, headline: Congress is rejecting Trump's steep budget cuts to science. Lead: Congress is racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs that President Trump called for last year. Trump is trying to cut the National Science Foundation 56%. Congress is now saying they will cut it less than 1%. Trump wanted to slash NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. You know, the weather. Congress's budget for NOAA is no cuts to NOAA, flat funding for NOAA.
By targeting blue states for these cuts, they are attempting to use federal resources to control the political behavior of the American electorate. The attempt to shut down wind farms in specific states is an exercise of arbitrary power intended to override local and regional economic projects. The retaliation against the American Academy of Pediatrics is an attempt to use federal grant money to silence scientific and professional criticism. This is a mechanism of control designed to ensure that no professional organization can challenge the administration's health policies without facing financial ruin. The attempt to withhold election funds is a direct effort to seize control of the democratic process. By claiming authority over election administration that the Constitution does not provide, the administration is attempting to dictate the rules of the very elections that determine who holds power. The freezing of childcare and social services for children in Democratic-run states is the most extreme form of this control analysis. It uses the survival and well-being of needy families as a pawn in a political conflict. This is an attempt to force political submission through the threat of withholding basic social safety nets. The strongest defense the administration has offered is an admission of their own political bias. They admitted that they decided to cut clean energy funding specifically in states that did not vote for Donald Trump. Their defense rests on the idea that the executive branch has the discretion to reward political allies and punish political enemies with taxpayer money. This defense has been dismantled by the law. Federal courts have ruled that this conduct is not a matter of executive discretion, but is instead illegal. The law does not allow a president to ignore the appropriations of Congress to satisfy a personal grudge. Regarding the American Academy of Pediatrics, the administration may argue they have the right to choose which organizations receive grants. However, the court dismantled this by identifying the action as illegal retaliation for protected speech and criticism. Regarding election funds, the administration's defense that they can set conditions for this money was dismantled by the explicit wording of the Constitution. The judge noted that the president has no authority over federal election administration. The defense that the administration can freeze childcare funds for political reasons was dismantled by the courts, which characterized it as a punishment against states for electing Democrats. In every case, the defense of executive authority has been crushed by the legal reality of constitutional limits. In the American system of government, the law is the final authority, not the president. The Constitution creates a system of checks and balances that prevents any one branch of government from becoming a dictatorship. One of the most important legal concepts is the power of the purse. This means that only the United States Congress has the power to decide how federal money is spent. Once Congress appropriates billions of dollars for clean energy or social services, the president's job is to spend that money as the law requires. He does not have the legal authority to decide he only wants to spend it in states that voted for him. Another vital legal principle is that of the First Amendment and the prohibition against illegal retaliation. The government cannot take away a benefit or a grant from a group just because that group criticized the government. Finally, the Constitution is very specific about the administration of elections. It does not give the president power over how states run federal elections. When a judge says the Constitution assigns no authority to the president in a certain area, it means the president is acting outside the law. The professional judgment based on these facts is that the Trump administration is demonstrating a profound unfitness for office through its insistent and blatant breaking of the law. The sheer volume of court rulings against the administration, often multiple times in a single day, indicates a systematic disregard for constitutional boundaries. This is not a series of isolated legal disagreements. It is a consistent pattern of illegal conduct. The administration is using the federal government to carry out a campaign of political retribution against the American people. When an administration uses childcare for needy families and health insurance rates for families as weapons of political war, they have abandoned the fundamental responsibility of governing for the whole country. The administration's attempt to slash science funding by 56% while Congress moves to protect it shows a disconnect from the basic functions of national progress and innovation. The judgment of the courts and the bipartisan response from Congress suggest an administration that is increasingly isolated and legally indefensible. The authority stack against the administration's actions is bipartisan and multi-branch. It includes federal judges from multiple districts who have issued rulings blocking the administration's illegal acts. It includes the United States Senate, where 5 Republicans crossed over to join Democrats to pass a war powers resolution to block military adventurism in Venezuela. It includes the United States House of Representatives, where 17 Republicans broke ranks with Trump to side with Democrats on the Affordable Care Act to stop health insurance rates from skyrocketing. It includes the bipartisan leadership in both the Senate and the House, who are racing to undo thousands of cuts to federal science programs. This stack includes the American Academy of Pediatrics, a professional medical organization that stood up to the administration's health department. The authority here is not just one judge or one party. It is a broad consensus of the judicial and legislative branches. Institutional accountability is currently being enforced by the federal judiciary and the United States Congress. The courts are finally pushing back harder and harder. They have lost the sense of shock they once had and now understand they are dealing with an administration that blatantly breaks the law all the time. Every time a judge issues an injunction or a ruling to reinstate funding, they are holding the executive branch accountable. Accountability is also coming from Congress, where the Republican majority in the House has shrunk to a very slim margin. Republicans in the House can now only afford to lose one vote if all Democrats are present. This has allowed for significant bipartisan rebukes on issues like Venezuela and healthcare. The ultimate institutional accountability will likely come through the electoral process. Current projections suggest that Democrats have a near certainty of taking over the House and a strong shot at taking over the Senate in the midterms. This shift in power would represent a massive institutional check on the administration's ability to propose disastrous budget cuts or pass legislation that harms American families. The procedural consequences of these legal and legislative actions are immediate and significant. Billions of dollars in clean energy funding must now be released to the states that were originally targeted for cuts. The American Academy of Pediatrics must have its federal grants reinstated following the court's ruling on illegal retaliation. Federal election funds must be distributed to the states without the illegal conditions the administration tried to impose. The work on the large offshore wind farm in Rhode Island and Connecticut will be able to go ahead because the illegal shutdown order was blocked. Temporary assistance to needy families will continue to flow into Democratic-run states because the freeze was ruled illegal. In Congress, the War Powers resolution on Venezuela will move to another vote this week, potentially limiting the president's ability to engage in military action. The science budget will see flat funding or increases for basic research and no AA rather than the massive cuts the president demanded. These are the concrete procedural results of the courts and Congress finally saying no to an administration that refuses to follow the law. The facts of this week show an administration in retreat. They show an administration that is losing in the courts. They show an administration that is losing its grip on Congress. They show an administration that is being told by every other branch of our government that they are not above the law. The courts have issued their rulings. Congress has cast its votes. The illegal acts have been blocked. The funding has been protected. This is the state of the law. This is the state of our government. The blitz of headlines today all point to a single conclusion. The Trump administration is being rebuked at every turn because they have chosen to ignore the laws they were sworn to uphold. The courts are no longer waiting. They are acting. And the American people are seeing the results. The forensic record is clear. The administration targeted blue states for energy cuts. They targeted doctors for criticizing RFK Jr. They targeted election funds for political leverage. They targeted childcare for needy children. In every case, a judge said it was illegal. In every case, the rule of law prevailed over the rule of one man. This is not a political debate. This is a sequence of legal facts. The administration broke the law. The courts caught them. The courts stopped them. That is the procedural reality. The legislative rebukes are just as clear. 17 Republicans in the House joined Democrats to save health insurance rates for American families. 5 Republicans in the Senate joined Democrats to stop military adventurism. This is one of the worst rebukes Trump has faced from his own party. The budget cuts he demanded for science, cuts of 56% and 33%, have been rejected by a bipartisan Congress that is instead choosing to invest in American innovation. We are seeing a change in the muscle memory of Washington. The assumption that the administration can do whatever it wants is being dismantled daily. The courts are finding their spine. The Congress is finding its independence. And the administration is finding that the law is a barrier they cannot simply tweet away. The consequences are procedural. The consequences are legal. The consequences are unfolding right now in courtrooms and on the floor of the House and Senate. This is the accountability that the American system was designed to provide. The billions of dollars for clean energy projects will now reach the states they were intended for. The pediatricians group will keep its funding. The wind farm will continue its construction. The election funds will be sent to the states. The childcare money will go to the children who need it. These are the facts. This is the law. This is the accountability that has been missing for too long, but is now being delivered with every new court ruling and every bipartisan vote. The administration is being told no. And for the first time in a long time, that no is final. The courts are no longer shocked. They are no longer waiting to see if the administration will correct itself. They have seen the pattern. They have seen the blatant breaking of the law. And they are responding with the only language the executive branch understands, the language of the law, the language of the injunction, the language of the ruling. This is not a matter of hope. This is a matter of legal procedure. The administration's illegal actions have been met with legal blocks. The administration's attempts at retaliation have been met with judicial rebukes. The administration's attempts to bypass Congress have been met with bipartisan legislation. The accountability is here. It is in the 17 Republican votes in the House. It is in the 5 Republican votes in the Senate. It is in the flat funding for NOAA and the increased funding for basic research. It is in the reinstatement of grants for the American Academy of Pediatrics. It is in the billions of dollars that will now flow to blue states for clean energy. It is in the billions of dollars that will now flow to children through the TANF program. The administration tried to take this away. The law brought it back. This is the system working. This is the separation of powers in action. This is the proof that the Constitution remains the highest authority in the land. The president does not have authority over election administration. The president does not have the authority to use the power of the purse for political revenge. The president does not have the authority to retaliate against those who criticize his administration's health policies. These are the lessons the courts are teaching this administration every day. These are the lessons that the Congress is reinforcing with every vote. The procedural consequences are clear. The administration is losing. They are losing in court. They are losing in Congress. They are losing their ability to use the federal government as a personal weapon. This is the accountability of the law. This is the accountability of the Constitution. It is happening now. It is happening every day, and it is happening multiple times a day. The headlines are the proof. The rulings are the evidence. The law is the winner.